Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome all to the Ramesh Academy. In the last chapter, what we have studied was regarding the charges. Coming to the next chapter, it is lesson number 8, distribution of profits. Yes, so we have covered, come to your index first. Distribution till charges we have done all the chapters. Now today we have to start with the distribution of profits, and then will come accounts and auditors, and then 3 of the chapters will be led from part A. I hope you are revising all the chapters side by side after the class. Please open your module and write down. Lesson 8, distribution of profits. What is distribution of profits, students? Please try to understand. If suppose company, this is ABC company, this company will give shares to shareholders. Yes, so these shareholders will have rights in profits of company. Now these shareholders, whatever is the income or what is the income of the company or the profits of the company, they will get right over these profits. So these shareholders will get what in return? Now profits for them in their language will be equivalent to dividend. Yes. So this company ABC, whatever is the income earned by this company, they will distribute the profits in the form of the dividend to the shareholders. This is the reason. Please make the chart. So write down one line. Shareholders of the company will have the right over the profits of the company. The shares in the profit of the company is known as dividend. Please write down this line also. Please write down this paragraph. This is very important. So let us come to the chapter. Profit earning and assessment of ascertainment of the divisible profits. Profit earning and maximization of the shareholders' wealth is the main objective of the business concern. So what are the two objectives of any business? First is to profit, make profits, and then is to maximize the shareholder wealth. Generally speaking, the profits is the excess of income over expenditure. Companies Act does not define the profit. So this is how, what is divisible profits? So mark down this case law, Bharat Insurance Company Limited versus CIT. Divisible profits are nothing. It means a profit which the law allows the company to distribute its shareholders. That I have told you that profits share is equal to dividend for in the hand of the shareholders by way of dividend. So according to Palmer's company law, the term divisible profits and profits are synonym. Thus, the profits mean the net proceeds of after deducting the outcome which those proceeds could be earned. So profits are what? Nothing but income less deductions. The shareholders contribute to the capital and these shareholders are entitled to the share of the profits. However, not all the profits made by the company to be distributed. Only the divisible profits are to be distributed to the shareholders. What is a divisible profits? Is that portion of the profit which are distributed among the shareholders by way of dividend only after provision for past losses and reserves are made. So write down profit is equal to income minus past losses, reserves. This is called as divisible profit. This is known as divisible profit, which is available to shareholders in the form of what? In the form of dividend. Yes, please write down. Okay. So what is declaration and payment of the dividend? What is a dividend? Dividend means something which is to be divided in the form of what? Cash or additional shares. So it is a share allotted to each several person entitled to share in the division of the profits. Hence, dividend may note as the funds set apart by the company out of the profits to be apportioned by the shareholders or the apportionate amount falling to each shareholder. So, what is dividend? Dividend is the return on the share capital which is subscribed and paid up to the shareholders, means payment by the company to its shareholders out of the distributable profits. Dividend, it is defined in 2 sub clause 35, means interim dividend. Interim dividend, you will come to know about the definition now. So means what is dividend? Dividend, it is the payment out of the profits of the company or actual release of some assets. So issue of bonus shares or right shares is not considered as dividend because issue of bonus share does not involve the release of any assets, and latter, which is called the right share, has no relation with the profits of the company. You cannot say when you are issuing your bonus shares or your right shares. We have studied about the right shares, that is which is available to the existing shareholders. In both of these cases, neither two of the conditions are involved, neither the payment of profits are involved, next is not assets releases involved in. So these cannot be called as your dividend. Every company has an implied inherent power to distribute its earnings or profits to the shareholders. Power to declare dividend therefore need not expressly given by the MOA or AOA. Articles may however regulate the manner in which dividend are to be paid. So the allotment of bonus share does not entail release of any assets. The existing shareholder, instead of receiving monies out of undistributable profits, only receive pro rata share. There is no distribution of profits among shareholders, and capitalization in the form of bonus shares would not be considered as the dividend. So dividend you need not include two of the shares, that is the bonus shares and the right shares. Next, come to what is the difference between an interest that you earn and what is dividend. So what is the meaning? Meaning is interest is the return on your borrowed capital. Whatever capital you have borrowed, that person has borrowed, you will earn a amount, that is return over that. Return on investment made in the share capital, that will be known as the dividend. It is a charge against the profit. We have learned what is charge. Charge is when it is used, that particular asset is used for repayment of the money. It is an appropriation of the profits. Calculations, it is the liability which has to be discharged even if the company has suffered loss. Why? Because in this particular thing, what is involved? A loan is involved. It is an appreciation of the profit which is arrived after providing the expenses. So see that profits minus deductions. Deductions means including your interest. So commitment, interest is always a commitment which is to be paid by the borrower as per the terms which is decided among the lender and the borrower. It is not a commitment. So this is the decision of the company whether to distribute the dividend or not, which is paid to lender, creditor and debenture holders. Now these are paid to equity shareholders and the preference shareholders. That are paid, interest is always paid to a lender to whom you have bought your loan. Expenditure, interest on bonds or other debt is an expense of the company. The interest being an expense reduces the company's net income and its taxable profits. So it is not an expense. Dividend is not an expense. The right of preference shareholder is a right to dividend even it is subject to availability of a profits. This right is not to the receipt of dividend but to the preferential treatment if and when dividend. So once you declare the dividend, then only you have to pay. It is not your expense. Mandatory. So interest is to be paid even if there is no chance of making the profit. Even if the company is not profit making company, it has to pay back amount to distribute dividend profits are necessary. So rate is always fixed in case of the interest, remains constant in case of the preference share, but fluctuate in case of the equity shares. So when the equity shareholders are given the dividend, their rates will always fluctuate, but it is not the case of the preference shareholder. So what are the nature? Meaning, nature, calculations, commitment, who it is paid to, expenditure, mandatory, and rate. So types of the companies and provisions relating to the payment of the dividend is there. So the dividend in other companies, for example, Section 8 companies are there which have the license for charitable objects. They are prohibited. They cannot pay the dividend to its members. So their profits are applied in promoting the objects of the company, because these are NPO company, it is non-profit making company. Nidhi company cannot declare dividend which is exceeding 25% in any financial year. So the maximum amount that can be contributed by the Nidhi company is 25%. Next comes the producer company. Producer company means payments made by producer company out of the surplus is in proportion of their patronage. So producer company they will decide and they will pay according to what is the decision of the shareholders in the general meeting. Company limited by guarantee is primarily used for non-profit making purposes. The profits are reinvested and used for promoting the NPA. So here also NPO activities are involved. So does not specifically prohibit distribution of profits. Companies Act will not prohibit them, but yes, however, AOA usually provides that the income shall be applied for promotion of the objects and no proportion shall be paid or transferred by way of a dividend. But in your AOA, it can be decided, yes, the amount can be distributed by way of the dividend. So there are two types of dividend we need to study, that is the final dividend and the interim dividend. So dividend in case of companies, first write down Section 8 company, no dividend. Nidhi company, maximum 25%. Producer company, subject to approval in general meeting. Then write down company limited by guarantee, no prohibition, but being a NPO, AOA must authorize. Please write down this. Then comes types of dividend, interim, and final. Please write down. Okay, I hope you have written. Section 8 companies, in that company, no dividend is declared. Nidhi companies, maximum 25% of the dividend is declared. Producer company, it is subject to approval in the general meeting. And company limited by guarantee, no prohibition. But being an NPO, being into company which is into non-profit making activity, their AOA must authorize. Now comes the types of the dividend. Final dividend is what? The dividend recommended by the board of directors and declared by the members at the general meeting. So always recommendation will be done by the board of directors and the final approval will be done, that is declaration of the dividend will be done by the shareholders in the general meeting. Interim dividend is what? Dividend paid by the company between two annual general meetings. So when there are two annual general meetings, you will declare a dividend in between, that is known as the interim dividend. Power to declare dividend, it is recommended by board at the board meeting and declared by the members. Declared by the company's board of the director. Here declaration will be done by the board of directors only. Meeting declared in the AGM of the members, it is declared at the meeting of the board. Time of declaration, it is declared after the end of the financial year, after the amount has been, distributable profit amount has been computed. Here it is declared on the basis of the provisional financial statements or the estimate. So basis on the estimates, you will declare your what? Interim dividend. Frequency of the payment, it is paid in once a financial year. It is paid more than in a financial year. Now what will be the source of payment? Paid out of the profit which is earned in the previous financial year. It is paid out of the surplus of P&L, out of the profit of the financial year in which interim dividend is to be declared, and profit generated by the company in the quarter preceding the date of declaration. So out of the quarter also, the preceding quarter you can declare, or financial year, in present financial year, or out of the surplus in the P&L account. Three ways you can just give the interim dividend. Next is quantum of the dividend. Members cannot declare dividend over and above the amount which is recommended by the board. Whatever is the recommendation by the board, that amount will only be paid, not more than that. It shall not be declared at the rate higher than the average dividend declared by the company during the 3 preceding financial year. You will calculate the 3 preceding financial years average divided upon 3, that will be the maximum amount that can be distributed in the form of the interim dividend. So what are the types, the basis of it? Meaning, power to declare the dividend, meetings, the time of declaration, frequency of payment, source of payment, and the quantum of the dividend. Next comes power to declare the dividend. Power to declare the dividend in case of the final meeting was recommendation by the board of directors and approved by the, declared by the members in the general meeting. This comes, so first of all is final dividend. While approving the financial statements and appropriation of the profit for the previous financial year, amount of dividend payable is also determined by the BOD of the company, who will decide how much to be paid and how much to be retained. These amounts from year vary depending upon the profits. The dividend recommended by board, it is mentioned in the board's report at the annual general meeting. You will write down that in the board report the amount which has been recommended by the BOD. This constitutes an item of ordinary business to be transacted at a annual general general meeting. In annual general meeting, there are two types of businesses which are discussed. For example, first is the ordinary business and second is the special business. We'll come to know about this in the next lectures. So special business, different items are there, ordinary business, different item. It will come under the ordinary business item. It may be noted that the shareholders may declare dividend which is lesser than the amount recommended by the board. However, it cannot declare dividend over. See, your dividend amount by the shareholders when they are at the final stage of recommending, it can be less than what has been when they are declaring, it can be less than what has been recommended by the board of directors, but it cannot be higher than that. So these are the 4 points. Next is the interim dividend. The board may declare the interim during any financial year or at any time during the period from the close of the financial year till holding of the AGM. So, whenever you are in closure of your financial year and before your annual general meeting is conducted, in between that time you can declare the interim dividend. Out of the profits in the P&L or out of the profits of the financial year for which interim dividend is out, or out of the profit in the financial year till the quarter, so 3 modes we have studied, it is declared. It is provided that board from time to time pay to the members such interim dividend as it justifiable to be paid. So declaration of dividend is dependent upon the provisional financial statement and the estimate. So this is how about this. Yes. So while final dividend it is recommended by the board and declared by the members, approval of member is not required in declaration of the interim dividend. Where the company has audit committee, this committee shall consider the financial results which shall thereafter be submitted to the board for consideration and declaration of the interim dividend. So this is how interim dividend, if you have a audit committee, you will finalize the financial results of the company and you will declare the interim dividend before you need not go into the shareholders in this case. So this is how your interim dividend is. Okay. For example, just a second. One thing. Okay, so one secretarial standard you can write down. See, secretarial standard 3 is applicable in case of the dividend. There are secretarial standards which are given by your Institute of Company Secretaries of India only. In these standards, your basic rules are framed. For example, secretarial standard 1 is different, secretarial standard 2 is different, maybe Some are relating to the board meetings and some are meeting to the annual general meetings. How you will conduct your board meetings, how you will conduct your general meeting. So Secretarial Standard 3 has come into picture that deals with the dividend. How the dividend will be declared and how it will be distributed out of your divisible profits deals with Secretarial Standard 3. So in this Secretarial Standard 3, what we have studying, while clarifying the interim dividend provides that while declaring the interim dividend, the board shall consider the financial result for which interim dividend is to be declared. Should be satisfied that financial position justifies and support the declaration of the dividend. So financial results shall take into account depreciation for the full year, tax on the profits, other anticipatable losses, dividend that would be required to be paid at fixed rate, then losses incurred during the current financial up to the quarter immediately preceding the declaration of the dividend. So it is saying Secretarial Standard 3 says that before declaring any sort of your interim dividend, you have to clarify, you have to be sorted in mind that yes, the profits are enough to pay the declaring this interim dividend. Then interim dividend shall not be declared at rate higher than the average dividend declared during the preceding 3 financial years. Preceding 3 financial years, take the average, divide by 3, that will be the maximum rate that you can offer this time during this current financial year. So Secretarial Standard 3 shall be declared, interim dividend shall be declared at the board in the event of the loss or adequacy of profit. No interim dividend shall be declared or paid out of the free reserves. So only in case of the adequacy of the profit, then only in interim dividend needs to be paid. It shall not be declared or paid out of your reserve. So Secretarial Standard 3, that where the company has issued profit equity shares with differential rights, interim dividend may at option declare all or more of the class of such share in accordance with the issue. In case of interim dividend is declared only for one class, the board shall ensure that the profit for financial shares are adequate to meet the dip. Simply they are right. So simply 3 years come average dividend which is declared, that will be the maximum amount of the interim dividend for the current financial year. For example, this case is illustration. Shan Limited incurred loss in the business up to current quarter. Company has declared dividend at the rate of 12, 15 to 18% for the immediate preceding 3 financial. In spite of the loss, the board have decided to declare the interim dividend of 15% for the current financial year. So do you think what you will do is divide 15, 12, 18 upon 3, take out the average, what will be the amount? So amount is it comes out to 45 divided by 3 is equal to 15. Exact 15%. Yes, the company can declare the dividend. This is how you will declare. Yes. What are the sources of payment of the dividend? So company, if so authorized by AOA, pay dividend in proportion of the paid up share capital. Whatever share capital is there, that amount of the paid up share capital, in that proportion only the dividend is declared, paid. May pay the dividend out of the profits of the company, out of the money provided by CG, SG or pursuance of guarantee given by the government, out of the financial year for which dividend is sought to be declared, and or for the previous financial year which remains undistributed after providing the depreciation. So, or out of the cumulative profits earned in financial year and transferred to reserves in case of the inadequacy or absence of dividend in if any financial year. So out of the cumulated profits you can, or out of the profits you can simply declare your dividend. Sources of declaration of dividend. Dividend shall be declared or paid by the company only out of what? Profits of that year, profits of the previous financial year, or out of the board or out of the money paid by CGSG or the in persons of the guarantee. Company shall not declare the dividend, unless carried over previous losses and depreciation not provided in previous year or years are set off against the profit for the current year. So supposingly there are losses and depreciation in the current year, you have to set off this losses and depreciation with the previous current year profits, then only the company can pay the dividend. Then so the company will not declare the dividend in the following cases: if it has defaulted in redemption of the debentures or payment of interest or creation or DRR or redemption of preference shares or creation of capital redemption reserve, payment of the dividend declared in the current or the previous financial year, or repayment of any term loan or interest till some such time the default. So when a company has made default in redeeming the debentures, redeeming the preference shares, or the payment of the dividend declared in the current financial year, it is not paid, or repayment of any term loan is not done, that case the company cannot pay the dividend. No dividend shall be declared by the company if any granted by tribunal or court for repayment of the above liability. So an order has been there by the tribunal or the court for repayment of these. In such situation you cannot declare the dividend. No dividend shall be declared or paid by the company from its reserve other than the free reserve. So only free reserves will be used in the case of the payment of the dividend. So such reserves will be the reserves as per the latest audited balance sheet which are available for your distribution of your profits. So these are some provisions relating to the dividend. Next is see, in Companies Act relating to the security premium, state whether amount lying in security payment can be used for payment. For payment of dividend declared by the company as general meeting, security payment since not covered in 123, it cannot. Only the free reserves can be used in case of the dividend is distributed. So transfer of the profits to the reserves. The company may, before the declaration of dividend, transfer such percent of its profit that it created to may consider appropriate to the reserves of the company. So at the beginning of the financial year only, the company can take a proportion of that profit to and transfer to the reserve account. Therefore, transfer of profits to reserves is left to the discretion of the BOD. Company shall not declare the dividend for non-compliance of the provision acceptance of the profit till such deposits have been repaid and interest. So any default till it is done, it is made, it is recovered, then only you will declare the dividend. So declaration of the dividend in case of loss and inadequacy. Suppose your dividend at the time of declaring the dividend, the company is incurring a loss or there is inadequacy of the profit, then in that case what will do? See, the conditions for the declaration of the dividend in case of inadequacy or absence is prescribed under Rule 3 of the company's declaration and payment of the dividend. Rule 3 specified in event of inadequacy and absence, a company may declare profits out of the free reserve subject to fulfillment of the conditions. So out of the free reserves only you will declare the dividend. Rate of the dividend as per Rule 3. Rule 3 is what? Rule 3 of company's declaration and payment of dividend, right? Rule 3 of company's declaration and payment of dividend. So what will be the rate of dividend? In case of inadequacy or absence of profits, it shall not exceed average of the rates at which dividend is declared for 3 years immediately preceding that year, right? So the 3 years interim dividend provision applies here also. Preceding 3 years, whatever dividend has been declared, it should not exceed that average of this. Amount to be withdrawn, total amount to be drawn from such profit shall not exceed 1/10 of the sum of the paid up share capital plus free reserves which are appearing on the latest. So, the whatever amount you are drawing from such accumulated profit, it should not exceed 1/10 of this plus, right? Then is utilization of the amount. The amounts are drawn first be utilized to set off the losses in which dividend is declared before any dividend is declared. So, before the dividend is declared, set off the losses. Balance reserves after such withdrawal shall not fall below 15% of the paid up share capital as appearing in the latest balance sheet. So, what is written here? 4 conditions. Write down in table form. Rule 3 of companies, declaration and payment. Rules to pay dividend in case of losses. First is shall not exceed 3 financially declared dividend. Second is set off current year loss. Okay. Or inadequacy of profits. Then is the amount drawn should not exceed what 1/10 of paid up capital plus free reserves. Fourth rule is now what amount you are withdrawing, it shall not at any time exceed 15% of paid up share capital. Okay. This is interpretation is balance in reserve. Now whatever balance will be left now in reserve after your withdrawal of amount, okay, after your withdrawal, shall not be below 15% of paid up share capital. See, amount whatever you are withdrawing from the profits and transferring to a reserve in case of the losses and inadequacy of profits, that amount withdrawn should not exceed 1/10 of the paid up and free reserves. Now after this amount withdrawn, balance will be left in your reserve, so balance shall not be less than the 15% of the paid up share capital. Set off the year losses first, and you should not exceed the average of the 3 financial years declared dividend. Yes, 4 conditions are important, very important, I think. Please write down. Yes, so I hope we have already written. So these are the conditions in case of inadequacy of the profits or in cases of loss. Then is exemption is given that these companies will not comply with these conditions. Which companies? Government companies where entire share capital is held by CG, SG or central government or SGs. So one of the good illustrations, in fact 1, 2, 3, 3 of the illustrations are there. Let us quickly solve these. First comes XYZ Limited having inadequacy of the profits wants to propose to declare a dividend out of the general reserve. These are the preference shares, equity shares, general reserve, capital reserve, security premium, surplus, average profits of the dividend for last 3 years. BOD wishes to declare dividend of 10%. First condition we are complying. Maximum amount is this much, 1/10 of so and so. Okay. So now first we have to see, first condition is total capital that comes out to 15% of so and so can be retained in the reserves. So 15% first of all is 15%, right? Paid up share capital now. So paid up share capital, you can just see what will be the paid up share capital. So here just you have to add preference shares plus equity share capital, that will be your total capital. Yes, so total capital 15% comes out to this amount. General reserve will be what? General reserve will be your 21 lakhs plus 63,000, that is surplus. Capital reserve is not there, security premium will be not there. So general reserve may only the general reserve and plus the P&L surplus. Maximum amount can be that can be withdrawn will be so and so, that is 2163. So the maximum amount will be the general reserve, that is 2163 or 15%. Yes, minus 15%, that will be the general reserve. So 15 after withdrawal 15% of the paid up share capital, it shall not be below than 15%, right? So maximum amount will be this general reserve minus the that 15% wala thing. So available profits will be your 63,000 here, then 3,70,000 net profits, 1,57,500 that has come across. 1,75,000 is what? Your 9% preference dividend here. Your 9% preference dividends will be your available profits. These are your available profits. Dividend desired to be declared by the company is 7 lakh according to this thing. Yes. So 7 lakh is the dividend. Profit available will be 2,62,000. Now profit available for declaration is this. Balance amount after withdrawal from the reserves will be what? Dividend declared will be 7 lakh minus 2,60,000, which is your profits available for the declaration of the profits. So hence the company can declare 10% of dividend. You can also see the average profits 15%. One condition is complying. Then 1/10 of the paid up share capital and free reserves. Just add this and you can find out the 1/10 of this. And then third condition will be we have studied is utilization of the profits and the balance of the reserve. Next condition is the profits are inadequate for X Limited. 18, 19, case 1, case 2, case 3. 10, 15. So the average profits is 15 divided by 3, 5%. So the company can declare dividend up to 5% subject to compliance of other conditions. Next is here nil, 3 of years. Stipulation regarding average rate of dividend is not applicable. Accordingly, the dividend for 21-22 current year subject to the conditions which are there. Then is 12%. Average dividend will be 12 divided by 3, that is coming to 4%. So the maximum you can declare is 4%. Next comes this illustration whereby equity share capital has come to 10 lakh, free reserve 2 lakh, revaluation 1, 0.35 is the profit and loss, net loss is 0.25 lakhs. Company paid dividend for 8%, 10, 12%. So first of all, maximum dividend will be 10% in this case divided by 3 average. So in this case, amount of the dividend should not exceed what? 1 lakh rupees. Yes. Means 10 lakh into the 10% wala case. Next comes so in the instance case also the loss comes to be 25,000. 25,000 is your net loss in this case. So next is total amount to be withdrawn shall not exceed 1/10 of the paid up share capital and free reserves. So paid up share capital and free reserves 10 plus 2. This is equal to 12, right? So divided by 10, that is equal to 1.2 lakh. So means paid up share capital in this case will be your equity share capital in this case is 10 lakh. So 10 lakh plus 2 is equal to 12. So 12 into 1/10 will come to be 1.2. So amount will not be exceeding this free reserve because our revaluation reserve is not included. Balance of the reserve, third condition, after withdrawal should not fall 15% of the paid up share capital. So a maximum amount that can be withdrawn is cannot exceed 50,000. So 15% of the paid up share capital your comes out to 10 lakhs. 10 lakhs. So that will be approximate 10 lakh divided into 15 divided by 100. So it comes out. So this. But the amount should be used to set off the current year loss also, that is 25,000. So the 25,000 will be the maximum amount in this case that can be paid by way of the dividend. Okay, write down this. Okay. Next illustration is, you can just solve the illustration in your home. This is your homework. Okay. This and this, both of it. Next is the dividend distribution policy. While considering the financial statement, the board should take into dividend policy, if any. Dividend policy, what it covers: the legal and contractual restrictions, earning of the company, cash position, financial needs, and tax considerations. For example, the legal, what are the legal restrictions on the imposed by your financial institutions? What is the earnings of the company which can be used to pay the dividend? What is the cash position and the liquidity of the company? Because higher the liquidity, higher you will be able to pay the dividend. So higher liquidity is equal to higher the dividend. Financial needs, there may be many financial needs, such as meeting of the cost of capital borrowed or your external capital. Then tax burden is a determining factor for the determination of the dividend policy. 4 factors are there: legal and contractual restrictions, earning of the company, capital position and liquidity. 5 factors: financial needs and your tax consideration. So this has to be taken into account before forming a dividend policy. Next come date for determining entitlement of dividend. So company may close its register or fix a record date for determining the dividend. So fixing of the record date is to be there before, whenever you close your registers or when you have to fix a specifically record date. Who are the persons who are entitled to the dividend? First come registered shareholder. In case of the death of registered shareholder, to the nominee, or joint shareholders are there, to the surviving first joint shareholder. In case of insolvency of the member is there, or the company is liquidated, it is closing down, then assignee of the insolvent person or liquidator. Administration of the profit assets of the deceased, account of who is administering the assets of the the deceased person. In that case, administrator can have this, or shares transferred to IEPF, investor protection fund. Yes. So what is written is, dividend should be paid by the company only to registered shareholders or not to any other person. The shareholder has the option to direct the company to pay the dividend to any other person. So company may fix a record date for determination of the shareholders for entitled to the dividend. Where the company has received intimation of death, the dividend must be paid to the nominee of the single holder. Where the shares are held by more than one joint holder and one joint holder dies, then who is the surviving first shareholder, he will get the dividend. In case of the insolvency, in that case assignee of the insolvent member will get the dividend. In case of administration of the assets of the deceased, administrator will get the dividend. Or if shares are transferred to IEPF, dividend paid will be to the IEPF. So this is how is it. Now one comes dividend to the preference shares holders. The preference shares carry the preferential right as to the dividend we have studied. However, this dividend is governed by the shareholders. The board may declare the dividend on such shares in terms of the issue. So where the dividend is paid to the preference shareholders, it is subject to the availability of the distributable profits, and the right is not the receipt of dividend but to preferential treatment. So what is the preferential treatment? So you have to consider your distributable profits in case of the dividend when you are paying to the preference shareholders. Dividend can be paid of the free reserves. Even where company is declared dividend out of free reserves. In the absence of any adequacy, the preference shareholders, they have their rights over the equity shareholders. However, when the board declares dividend on preference equity shares, it is not necessary to declare dividend. So obviously, whenever there is a declaration of the dividend, preference shareholders will always get a right. So, however, in terms of issue, if it is silent, dividend shall be distributed on the pro rata basis. In case of interim dividend, while preference shareholder need not necessarily pay dividend before interim dividend is paid to the equity shareholder, board shall take into account the sum as to pay the dividend before the consideration of the interim dividend. So, this is how it is. So, for example, this illustration is Board of Directors of ABB Limited wants to declare dividend of rupees 15 lakh out of the capital profits for the year without making the provisions for the what? Depreciations. So, now you are the CS, you will advise the board. In accordance with the Companies Act, section is 123, no dividend shall be paid from the reserves other than the free reserves. Only free reserves will be used, not the capital profit. See. So, free reserve will be the reserves which are as per the your latest profit and loss of the company. So, depreciation shall be in accordance with the schedule 2. So, here in this case, it can neither declare dividend from capital profit nor it can declare dividend without making the profit. So, profits without making the depreciation. So, depreciation clause also needs to be accumulated before declaring the profits for dividend. So, dividend on dividend in case of the beneficial owner. So, see, no obligation of the company for payment of dividend is towards the member. So, the obligation is towards the member, not towards the beneficial owner. However, the dividend must be paid to beneficial owner where the shareholder instructs the company to do so. Wherever the shareholder says, yes, my dividend needs to be paid on, I will not receive the dividend, my so-and-so person will receive, then in that case, you can pay, the company will be paid, yes. So, this is how it is. Here, the concept of deemed dividend, where the closely held company extends the loan advance to any of its shareholder who has more than 10% of the dividend to any concern in which shareholder is substantially interested for the individual benefit of the shareholder or on behalf of the shareholder to extend the company has accumulated profit. Such payment would be deemed as a dividend. For example, their company, which is closely held company, and it has given a loan or advance to any of the shareholder which is having 10% or more of the voting power, or to any person in which substantially this shareholder is very much interested, or for the individual benefit of the shareholder, this is known as the deemed dividend. Okay. So, for example, there is a case, illustration ABC Private Limited is a company. The public is not substantially interested in Mr. X. Mr. X is one of the company shareholders who hold 20% of the shares. Company has profits of 50 lakh as on 31st March. The company granted loan to 1 lakh to Mr. X by way of account paid check. He repaid the amount on 5th. In this case, even if the loan has been repaid, the amount granted to the extent of accumulated profits are treated as a interim dividend. Next is waiver of right of dividend. See, receipt of dividend is a right of shareholder, not an obligation. There is no provision to deal with the waiver of dividend. Hence, the provisions contained in the articles. The further such waiver can be full or the half or full. Declaration of the dividend. Dividend is an important decision and have impact on the financial position of the company. It should be considered at the board meeting and not at the committee of the board or by circulation. So, unless the dividend has been recommended, the members in general meeting cannot declare the dividend on their own. Yes. So, declaration of dividend should always be unconditional. Whatever board of directors they are declaring the dividend, it should not be subject to conditions. It should always be unconditional. All the requisite approval should be obtained before declaring the dividend. Dividend shall not be declared subject to any condition. For example, you are saying to ask an approval to the institutions or banks or foreign collaborators. So this is how it is. Yes. So due to the inadequacy of the profits, the BOD of Rice Limited decided not to recommend any dividend for the financial year. Certain shareholder complained to tribunal regarding the mismanagement since the board did not recommend any dividend. So what it says, relief in case of mismanagement is defined in section 241. For the petition to be succeeded, it must establish that affairs are being conducted which is manner prejudicial to the interest of the company by way of any change in the management or control. It is likely affairs of the company will be conducted in that manner if the court is convinced it can be of the view of bringing to end of preventing the matter, such may make an order as it thinks. Therefore, applying the above facts and precedents, it is concluded that non-payment does not amount to mismanagement. See, now section 241 says that supposingly there is mismanagement in your company, you can go to tribunal in this case and you will get a protection only if your interest is being prejudicial to the interest of the company. For example, there is change in the management or there is change in control. In this case, there is no such misrepresentation, no such clear misrepresentation, then the shareholders, they cannot claim a relief from the tribunal. Then dividend to be deposited in a different bank account. Say, including the interim dividend, all the dividends shall be deposited in scheduled bank in separate account within 5 days from the date of the declaration of such dividend. So, within 5 days when you declare, who declare? BOD, you will deposit the dividend in separate account. Any amount which remains unpaid or unclaimed after 30 days shall be referred to unpaid dividend account to be opened by company. For example, that amount remains unpaid, company didn't pay the amount, then after 30 days also it will be transferred to unpaid dividend account. Next is so in Secretarial Standard 3, it says that dividend shall be deposited in a separate bank account within 5 days from the date of declaration, shall be paid within how many days? 30 days. If it is not paid in 30 days, then you will transfer to unpaid dividend account. The intervening holidays shall also be included. Suppose there are holidays, then also within 15 days, 5 days you have to deposit. Yes. Then there are two requirements now. Dividend will be claimed within 30 days. If it is not claimed within 30 days, then separate bank account will be opened and the dividend will be unpaid dividend account will be opened and paid to the deposited to the such unpaid dividend account. Now, if dividend is claimed within 30 days, once a separate bank account is opened for the purpose of payment of dividend and entire dividend is paid from such account and no balance is there, the same separate bank account can be used for the purpose of the deposit of dividend declared in future years, so long as the dividend is paid and claim and nothing is left. So nothing is left as unpaid dividend, then you can just if suppose entire money is paid for the purpose of dividend and nothing is pending in that for future years also, you can put the same amount of the dividend in that account. Remittance of the dividend to the NRIs. See, dividend can be remitted to the NRIs provided it is allowed under the permission of RBI. RBI permission is required. So, in that case, it is only dividend. So, dividend may be paid to equity shareholder or the preference shareholder. So, in case of equity shareholder, board of directors is free to determine the rate of dividend subject to adequacy of the profits. Preference shares as per as the fixed rate decided at the time of the issue of the preference shares. Now, whenever you are issuing the preference shares, in that time only the rate is fixed for the preference shareholder. But in case of the equity shareholders, board of the directors are free to determine the rate of the dividend subject to the profits. Then comes Section 123 provides it in case of company has incurred loss during the current financial year and up to the end of the quarter immediately preceding the date of declaration of the interim dividend. Such interim dividend shall not be declared higher than the average raise declared during the preceding 3 financial year. We have already said this. So, in case a company has not declared dividend in immediately 3 presentation, then above provision regarding average provision does not apply. So, for example, this average provisions will not apply. Why? When there is no profit, then what average you will take out? Then is the mode of the payment. It can be either by cash, check, warrant or electronical mode. So, dividend can be paid in cash and not in kind. Not in kind, like you cannot pay, like when you are gifting the shareholder, it is the, so in this case gifting is not a policy. You will not pay in kind, you will only pay in cash. Dividend payable in cash can be by part check or by electronical mode. Closely held companies also use the method of purchasing demand drafts in the name of the shareholder. Electronical mode is also allowed in case of the payment of the dividend. So, this is how it is, okay. So, dividend shall be paid proportionately on the paid up value of the shares. This is right down. So, no dividend shall bear the interest against the company except in case of default in the payment of the dividend. No liability will be there except when you have been defaulted. Next is liability to pay the final dividend. Just a second. This you can just read the case law. Nothing as such important. Here also read the case law. Sorry. Next is no dividend to be declared or paid in case of the failure of repayment of deposits. So, until and unless you will repay the deposits, you cannot declare the. Suppose you are defaulted in repaying the deposit amount. We have learned of what is deposits. 2(1)(c) is the deposit definition. In that case, if there is a default in the payment of the deposits, you are not liable to pay the dividend, and you cannot pay the dividend unless and until you will make sure that all the deposits amount are repaid. So, section 123 provides that a company which fails to comply with the provisions of what was the section 73, right, and 74 shall not, so long as the failure continues, declare the dividend. BOD, for example, Peculiar Limited proposes to recommend a final dividend of 25 each to all the equity shareholders. The company seeks the opinion, like it wants to deposit the dividend amount to cooperative bank. Second is, the company is a defaulter in making the payment to deposits, proposes to repay the deposit after payment of dividend within 10 days. Dividend will be declared out of the capital reserves. This is wrong, and dividend amount to be deposited, we'll check. See, procedure for paying the final dividend is what? Amount of the dividend has to be deposited in scheduled bank. Company should ensure that a cooperative bank is a scheduled bank first of all. Then, company which fails to comply with the provisions referring to section 123 relating to acceptance and repayment of the deposit shall not, unless the failure continues, declare any dividend. So, it cannot declare dividend till the failure in payment of the deposits are there. Then, no dividend shall be declared or paid by the company other than the free reserve, because here it is capital reserve. So, means reserves means the latest audited balance sheet. As per the latest audited balance sheet, which are available for the distribution of the profit as the dividend. So, dividend cannot be declared out of the capital reserves of the company. So, this is about your illustration that we have read. So, next is unpaid dividend account, section number 124. Company is required to deposit the amount in a separate bank account in scheduled bank within 5 days from the date of the declaration. In case the dividend has been declared but has not been paid or claimed, entitled to the payment within 30 days of declaration, the company shall within 7 days from the date of expiry of 30 days transfer the amount to unpaid what? Dividend account. So first provision is that amount to be paid for dividend shall be within 30 days of declaration. Yes, then if not claimed within 30 days, then after expiry of 7 days, within 7 days, transfer to unpaid dividend account. Okay. Section 124. Okay. So the company shall within 90 days of making the transfer to unpaid dividend prepare a statement which is containing the name, the last known address and unpaid dividend to pay to, and place it on the website of the company. So now you have transferred the amount to unpaid dividend account. Within 90 days you will prepare a list of the persons to whom this unpaid amount relies, and money transferred to unpaid dividend account which remains unpaid or unclaimed for 7 years. Now for 7 years this amount has not been used only from the date of the transfer, then you will transfer along with the interest to the IEPF account. The company shall send a statement of the details of the transfer which administer the fund and issue a receipt to the company. See, so now after this, if it remains unclaimed, So nothing, no person has claimed this amount also, right? Remains unclaimed for 7 years, then transfer this amount, that is unpaid dividend amount, with interest to whom? IEPF. Investor, that is Investor Education and Protection Fund. Yes. Clear? So, for it is clarified that dividend is paid or claimed for any year for 3 years, the share shall not be transferred to IEPF. Suppose the dividend is declared and it is paid within the 7 years, then no amount will be transferred to IEPS. Then, see, they have made a good chart in this. Here the company declared a dividend in AGM. Within 5 days from the declaration, you will create a separate account and deposit the amount. Now, within 7 days from the expiry of the 30 days, if amount is unclaimed within 30 days from the date of declaration, then the amount shall be transferred to unpaid dividend account. Then within 90 days of transferring the amount to unpaid dividend account, you will prepare a list and place on your company website. Then unclaimed dividend account along with the interest shall be transferred to what? IEPF after the expiry of the 7 years. Yes, within a period of the 7 years. Yes. So one case study we can do. Company declared dividend in 21st of June. It reports by 22nd July, it could not pay the dividend to 46 members as they are not traceable to 3 years. Advise the company with regard to unpaid dividend account. Where the dividend has been declared by the company, it is not paid or claimed within 30 days from the date of declaration to any shareholder, then the amount, then to any shareholder entitled to amount which shall within 7 days from the date of expiry of 30 days, you will transfer to what? Unpaid dividend account. In this case, when you declare the dividend within 21st, the dividend remains unpaid after 30 days, that is the 22nd July, it should be paid within 21st of July. The company is advised to transfer the what? Remaining unpaid and unclaimed account to a special account which is called as unpaid dividend account. What? Within 7 days from the date of expiry of the said period of the 30 days. Further, any amount transferred to unpaid dividend account which remains unpaid or unclaimed for 7 years from the date of transfer, then along with the interest will be transferred to IEPS. So, what is the simple 5 days, 7 days, 7 days, 30 days, 30 days, 90 days, 7 years. Next comes the case study is there, you can just read for your information. Then comes section 125, that is the IEPF. So, this chapter you can write down section 123, 124, 125 dealing with IEPF, dealing with unpaid dividend account, yes, and 123 is about the dividend. These 3 sections are there. So 129 deals with your IEPF. 25. Okay, so next is IEPF section number 125. For administration of IEPF fund, Government of India have established the IEPF under section 125. The authority is entrusted with the responsibility for administration of the IEPF, making funds unclaimed mature deposits. Section 125 prescribes the following amount shall be credited to this fund. Amount which is given by CG by way of grants after due appropriation made by the Parliament. Donations of fund by the CG or SG. Amount in unpaid dividend account. Amount in general revenue account. Amount lying in IEPF. Interest or other income. Amount received by application money. Mature deposits. Matured debentures or interest incurred. Sales proceeds of fractional, redemption amount of preference shares and other amounts which has been there. So this is the what all amounts will be credited in case of IEPF. For example, you have received any amount from the central government by way of grant, or donations you have given to central government, or amount which is paid to the IEPF, unpaid dividend account we have said. Then general revenue, for example, matured deposits, matured debentures, interest accrued on some these amounts, redemption amount of the preference shares. These all amounts needs to be credited to the IEPF account. These all are the sources that they have written. So the procedure for transfer to the IEPF is amount of unclaimed or unpaid dividend required to be credited by the companies to the fund shall be remitted online with a statement called IEPF 1, containing the details of such transfer to the authority within the period of 30 years of such amounts becoming due to be credited. So IEPF will be the statement. Next is IEPF 1A. This is Excel template which needs to be downloaded by the company. Amount shall be remitted by electronical transfer. On the receipt of the statement, the authority shall enter the details that with the bank it shall within 7 days. It's just a procedure. It's just for your knowledge they have written. The company shall maintain the IEPF account. So this is IEPF 1 that you will remember. Then here, name of the shareholders to be hosted on the website. So what is this saying? That there should be separate furnished and upload the website, and in the authority website a statement or the information of the IEPF amount separately for previous financial year through IEPF 2. IEPF 2, every company shall within 60 days after holding a general meeting or the date in which is held, and every year till the completion of 7 years, identify the unclaimed account as on date of the closure, separately furnish. You have to, within 60 days after holding the AGM, you have to declare unpaid account amounts for the previous 7 years in IEPF 2. You have to give a declaration whereby you will write down the address, name of the persons entitled for the sum, amount which is entitled, due date and such other information. So the shares, all shares in respect of which dividend which has not been paid or claimed shall be transferred in name of the IEPF along with the along with the statement. This is about the transfer to the IEPF, right? Next come, for effecting the transfer, the board shall authorize the CS to sign the necessary documents. The company shall inform at latest address a shareholder concerned regarding the transfer of shares 3 months before the due date of transfer, and also publish a notice in the English newspaper. In case where there is specific order restraining any transfer or payment, the company shall not transfer such account to the fund. Further, the company shall furnish details to the authority in IEPF 3 within 30 days of the end of financial year. So within 30 days of end of financial year, this details will be given to the authority, IEPF authority, within 30 days in IEPF 3. For the purpose of effecting the transfer, the shares are dealt with the depository. It shall inform the depository which are if you are holding the shares in the demat account. Yes. So this is it. Then comes here. While effecting the transfer, the company shall send a statement of IEPF 4 within 30 days of corporate action containing the details of the transfer. Company shall also attach the public notice which is given in IEPF 4. So IEPF 4 then comes into picture. After this, so this is just for the information that comes into picture. Now see, what is the effect if you have not transferred? It is non-transfer. If a company fails to transfer unpaid unclaimed dividend account within 7 days from the date of expiry of the 30 days, company shall pay the date of the default for the amount which is not transferred at the rate said account, this at the rate of 12% interest to what benefit of the members. If suppose you have not paid from the expiry of 7 days from the 30 days of the date of declaration, then definitely your account in that account at the rate of 12% will be applicable along with the interest. Yes. So now is entitlement of dividend from the unpaid dividend account. Any person who is claiming to be entitled to any dividend which is transferred to unpaid dividend account may apply to the company for payment of the dividend. After declaration of the dividend, the company has no interest in the amount so declared, but it is custodian of the trustee. The company shall enter the details in the register and reconcile the amount. The listed company should ensure reconciliation. So reconciliation, and then you have to pay to that person who has asked for the dividend. Now what is the penalty? Suppose you have been default, the company will be liable for 1 lakh rupees, which after it is continuing, every day it is continuing subject to maximum of 5 lakh. Officer in default, penalty of 25,000 in case of a continuing failure, with a further penalty of 2,000 each day. So now it is a simple dividend declared within 30 days not claimed, 7 days transfer to unpaid, 7 years transfer to IEPS. Yes. Now this particular IEPF will be utilized for what? The refund in respect of unclaimed dividend deposits, debentures, application money, promotion of investors, education, awareness and protection. Why? Because IEPF full form is Investor Education Provident Fund. Distribution of any disgorged amount which is eligible and identifiable, or reimbursement of the legal expenses also. So these can be utilized for these purposes. For example, refund in respect of unclaimed dividend, promotion of investor protection, distribution of any disgorged amount among eligible and identifiable applicants for shares and debentures, right, who have suffered the losses due to wrong action by the any person. Then reimbursement of the legal expenses can be there, and any other purpose can be there for which IEPF can be what? Claimed. Okay. So what is it? Procedure which can be adopted for IEPF by the investors. What is the procedure? First of all, you have to file an online application to be filed by claimant to the authority in IEPF 5, which is available in www.iepf.gov.in. You have to send your documents at the registered office with bond, stamp receipt, Aadhaar card, suppose check reform, this. Then appointment of the nodal officer. Every company which has deposited the amount to be fund shall nominate the nodal officer for the purpose of the verification of the claim. The person means company shall appoint a nodal officer, and nodal officer's details will be communicated to authority in IEPF 2. Company to send a verification report. Company has to send an online verification report to the authority after verification in the format specified by the authority with all the documents which are there, scan copies and all, within 30 days of the date of receipt of claim, right? And if non-receipt of verification along with the document by authority of the expiry of 60 days from the date of filing the IEPF after sending a communication. Authority to refund the amount. After verification, the authority will refund the amount. Time period for disposing the claim by authority. Within how many days? 60 days from the date of receipt of verification report by the company. Cases where application is defective. Maybe authority think that the claim the application is defective, or the claim finds it necessary to call for other information, then it can be delayed. Registering transmission. In some cases, supposingly your legal heir or some person has died, in that place the legal heir is transmission case is there. In that case, what the claimant will do, it will submit the scanned copy of the documents in IEPF 5, right? This is all the cases of IEPF 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next is the judgment is there for your purpose. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 forms that we have studied. First is IEPF 1, statement of amount credited to the IEPF, which needs to be filed within 30 days of the amount becoming due to the fund. Then is IEPF 2, which is indicating the statement of information regarding the unclaimed dividend on the website and on the site of the authority. Yes, so within 60 days this will be done. Next is IPF 3, intimation of specific order of court tribunal restraining any transfer or payment or where shares are pledged has already been transferred within 30 days from the date of the financial year. 4, for transfer of shares to the IEPF within 30 days of the shares becoming due to be transferred. Next is 5. Any person whose shares unclaimed mature deposits due to refund sales proceeds has been transferred to the fund may claim the shares or apply for refund any time. Yes, IEPF 7 is the next thing. IEPF 7 is statement of amount credited to IEPF on the account of shares transferred to the fund within 30 days of the amount of their evidence. You have to simply tell the authority. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 we have studied. 1 is the statement of the amount credited. Then 2 may statement of information needs to be given on the website of your company and website of what? Website of your authority. IPF 3, when the court or the tribunal or the state authority restraining any transfer involved within 30 days you have to file the statement of the financial year. 4 is for transfer of shares to the IEPF within 30 days of the share becoming account to be transferred. Then 5, any person whose claim is pending, he can claim that unpaid dividend account from that claim by filing IEPF 5. IEPF 7 is statement of the accounts which is credited to the IEPF. Then is revocation of the dividend. Once a dividend is declared, it becomes a debt and therefore it cannot be revoked. Once you have declared the dividend, you cannot take that dividend declaration back. It is not revoked. Yes. So, preservation of the dividend check, warrants and dividend registers. So, you have to preserve for the period of how many years? 8 years. Yes. Next is the disclosures. Some of the unlimited companies act, it has said you have to disclose the listed companies which are listed on the stock exchanges, that is the National Stock Exchange and the Bombay Stock Exchange. They have to make a disclosures prior declaring the dividend. You can just read this, is not that much important. Next is where any instrument for transfer of shares has been delivered by the company for registration and such shares have not been registered, then you will transfer the dividend relation to shares to the unpaid dividend account. Yes. Next is the punishment. Punishment for the failure to distribute the dividend. This is not also that much important. You can just write down, okay? Just read and then you can this is just a reading. Don't go to the defaults. What is the penalty? It's very, syllabus is lengthy and you cannot remember each and everything. Okay. Okay. So quickly we'll just wind up this lecture also. See, come to case study here. Case study is there, that is there. Illustration. Board of Director of Charming Entertainment Limited in its meeting held on 16th August declared an interim dividend on its paid up share capital. Now the bonds was to reward the declaration. So dividend which includes the interim dividend is due to be paid once it is properly declared. Interim dividend is declared by the BOD and once it is declared, it becomes due to the company. So section 123 provides that the amount of the dividend including shall be deposited in scheduled bank in a separate account within 5 days of the date of the declaration. Yes, we have studied this. Section 127 states penalty for any default in not paying the dividend within 30 days. Hence, no offence under this section shall be deemed to have committed where the dividend has not been paid, where the shareholder has given direction to the company regarding, where there is dispute regarding the right, or where the dividend has been lawfully adjusted, where for any reason failure of dividend is default. Interim dividend has to be paid and cannot be revoked. Only there are few of the situations where you can 127 has stated no offence will be deemed to have committed under 127. Here, no offence under this section shall be deemed to have committed when your dividend could not be paid by law. Then is where shareholder has given direction to the company regarding the payment of the dividend. Yes, where there is dispute regarding the right to receive. Dispute is there where operation of law is there, or shareholder gives the direction to the company regarding the payment of the dividend, and that directions cannot be complied with, or where the dividend has been lawfully adjusted against any sum due to the shareholder, where for any reason failure of dividend or post warrant was not due to any fault on the part of the company. So these are all cases where the default is not there. A similar answer they have written in this case. Yes, but once you have declared the dividend, you cannot revoke the dividend. Now, what is the procedure for declaration payment of interim dividend? Verification you have to do by AOA. E-notice you have to give for board meeting to consider the matter. Prior intimation you have to give to stock exchanges in case of the listed companies. Matter with regard to declaration payment of interim dividend to be discussed in a board meeting, that you have adequate profits to pay. Companies incur losses for last quarter shall not be higher than the average dividend. Before declaring, must satisfy themselves that financial position allows for payment of the dividend. What will be the quantum? What will be the entitlement? Closure of register, opening of a separate bank account, printing of dividend, then posting the dividend warrant, suitable resolution for declaration payment of interim dividend on preference shares, and authority for signing the dividend warrants. These all things will be discussed in the board meetings by the board of members. Next is coming to disclosure to the stock exchange should be given in case of listed company within 30 days after the conclusion of the meeting. Then compliances for the listed companies is different. You have to publish a notice of the book closure in the newspaper. One newspaper you have to give a declaration. Then you have to give a notice in advance at least 7 days to the stock exchanges. Then you have to closure of the register of members. Then board meeting will be conducted for registration of transfer or transmission of shares. Separate bank account will be opened within 5 days of the declaration. Then mode of the payment will be, we have said, online cash. Taxability of the dividend, domestic company is not required to pay the dividend distribution tax or other amount declared, distributed or paid by way of cash by way of dividend. Dividend received from domestic company is taxable in hands of the shareholders. Yes. Then dividend warrants will be made. Statement of dividend will be given, will be prepared, where shareholders ledger folio, number of shares, dividend you have to write, printing of dividend warrant and dispatching the dividend warrant within 30 days of the date of declaration of the dividend. Then you will publish a company notice in the newspaper about the dividend. Unpaid and unclaimed dividend account we have already studied, within 7 days from the date, 30 days of date of declaration of final dividend. And then AGM will be there to confirm the interim dividend. This is all about the process of the interim dividend. Next, what is the process that needs to be followed in case of declaration and payment of the dividend, final dividend, that was about the interim dividend. First of all is, you have to give a notice of the board meeting to all the directors. Prior intimation to stock exchange needs to be given at least 2 working days in advance. Then you will hold a board meeting. What? You will approve the annual accounts, recommend the final dividend quantum, fix the date, venue and time for next AGM. You will approve the notice for AGM. You will determine the date of closure for register. So then you will transfer to reserve such percentage as it considered appropriate of current profits. Disclosure of stock exchange, simple, you have after the board meeting you have to within 30 days. That is same. The notice of book closure needs to be given in advance of 7 days to the as a stock exchange. Then is declaration. So time gap between 2 book closures would be at least 30 days. 2 book closures time gap will be at least 30 days. Declaration of the dividend will be declared on share basis only. Closure register of the member, you will close the registers of the share transfer registers. Now you will disclose this in the board report. We have already said the board report there should be a declaration. Then board committee meeting for approving the registration for transfer and transmission and declaration of the dividend will be there. What? At AGM. Yes. Statement of dividend will be prepared where name, address, number of folios, dividend should be there. Separate bank account and the payment will be there. Within 35 days of the declaration of the dividend, separate bank account. Taxability will also be similar as case of the. Then dividend warrant will be, it will be printed, it will be dispatched and instructions will be given to the specified and notice will be given to the news in the newspaper, and unclaimed unpaid dividend will be paid within 7 days after expiry of the 30 days. This is how your final dividend procedure will be there. In brief, you can just read, give it one reading, don't go through inside proper. What is the procedure with regard to declaration of the dividend out of the reserve? Procedure, declaration of dividend, you will give a notice to the BOD for the board meeting. Ensure all the provisions are complied with respect to company's declaration and payment of dividend. While calculating the profits for previous year, you will take the net profit after tax. For amount of the profits, computing amount transferred to development, debate reserve is included and the capital reserves created by revaluations, they are excluded. Only this reserve, development rebate reserve is included, other reserves are not included. They say revaluation of assets reserves are not included. Only the capital reserve, only the reserves including general reserve including this development rebate reserve account is included. Then in case of listed companies, you have to disclose for within 30 minutes of the closure of the board meeting about decision to recommend the declaration. You will issue a notice in writing 21 days before the AGM and you will forward the notice to the stock exchange. Separate bank account will be opened within 5 days and simple, rest of the procedure will be same. Yes. Now we have said SS3 is there regarding the by Institute of Company Secretaries of India. I have only formulated SS3. In SS3 all similar rules are there. When there is losses, how the dividend will be distributed and how it is to be paid, what are the modes of the payment of the dividend, everything is just justified in SS3. The specimen resolutions are there. So this is dividend distribution policy. You will read on your own regarding this. For two resolutions, actually three resolutions are there. Quickly we will just wind it up. Specimen board resolution for declaration of interim dividend. Resolved that interim dividend and so percentage on fully paid up shares amounting to rupees this to those members of the company whose names appears on the members of the register of members being recorded for the payment of the interim dividend. Resolved further that separate bank account shall be opened in name of the company and sum of rupees of the total shall be said account will be deposited within how many days? 5 days. So CS or director are jointly authorized to open a bank account by signing the account opening, and documents they are responsible for signing relating to the bank arrangement. Director or CS be authorized to jointly sign the dividend warrant to be issued on the state bank, and the state bank are authorized to honor the interim dividend warrant. This is regarding this. When you are declaring the interim dividend, first of all give a percentage of the interim dividend, how much amount total will be paid, then write on the bank account that within 5 days the bank account will be opened, and then you will authorize the director or CS. Next is specimen board resolution for declaring the interim dividend as the preference shares. Same, you will write preference shares, whole amount, total amount, board of directors, and for example they are jointly to sign the dividend. Equity shares, same as that, you will write down the bank account details and the CS. So all the resolutions are interlinked only. Just give a reading and tell me if you have any doubts. Yes. So this is about the lesson wound up. So lesson wound up mein what we have studied, dividend 2 subsection 35 includes the interim dividend. What is dividend? Dividend is the share of the company's profit. You may declare interim dividend during the financial year out of the profits between two AGMs. So final dividend is declared as the AGM, and dividend with accordance with dividend rules are there. Amount to be deposited in scheduled bank within 5 days from the date of declaration. It will be paid by check, warrant, electronical mode. Dividend is not paid or claimed within 30 days, then you will transfer to what? Unpaid dividend account in 7 days. And for 7 years, amount remains unpaid, it will transfer to what? With interest accrued within IEPF. If dividend is paid for any year during the 7 years, then the shares shall not be transferred to the IEPF. So these are the glossaries that we have studied. So please mark down these questions first, second, note on IEPF. Case study based questions can also come. Mark this. All the case studies based questions are there. It's important only. Okay. Just write down only one question. Other questions are covered in your as per your chapter. Difference between dividend and interest. Okay. Yes. So this is about your chapter. Quickly we'll just give it a glance what we have read today, and then we will conclude this chapter. So distribution of profits, today we have started with this chapter whereby we have read about what is the two motives of the company, profit making and the maximization of the profits. We have read about the divisible profits definition. We have read that law allows the company to distribute to the shareholder by way of dividend the divisible profits. Yes. Now, what will be the manner and declaration of the dividend? We said dividend is something which is to be divided to the shareholder. Bonus shares and the right shares are not included in the dividend. We have read about the interest and the dividend part, whereby we have sent about the nature, basis, what base of the difference was, meaning, nature, calculations, commitment, paid to, expenditure, mandatory and rate. Then types of the company, we have studied section 8 companies, Nidhi company, producer company and company limited by guarantee. Section 8 company prohibited है, Nidhi company 25% in every financial year, producer company and next is the company limited by guarantee. So only by AOA. Next is final dividend and interim dividend, whereby we have read the basis of the difference, meaning power to declare the dividend, meetings, time of declaration, frequency of the payment, source of the payment and the quantum of the dividend. Power to declare the final dividend, we have said board of directors, they are power to declare the dividend but only on the recommendation of the what? Shareholders. No, board of directors, they can only tell, but the only declaration will be done by the shareholders. Next is what we have studied is the source of the payment of the dividend will be out of the profits of the company or out of the cumulative profits earned in the previous financial year. Out of the profits of the company may be the out of the money of the central government, state government or the financial year or the previous financial year. Three things are covered out of the profits of the company. Now what we have studied is regarding that you will not declare the dividend if there is any redemption, default in the redemption of the payment of the debentures, preference shares, dividend declared in payment of the dividend declared in current or the previous financial year. No dividend shall be declared or paid by the company other than the free reserves. Then we have said what rule 3, in case of inadequacy and absence of the profits, rate of the dividend will be 3 years average dividend which is declared, amount to be withdrawn 1/10 shall not exceed 1/10 of the sum of the paid up share capital and free reserve. Utilization of the amount will be first utilized for set off of the losses and last will be the balance of the reserve, which shall not be fall below what? 15% of the paid up share capital appearing in the last audited balance sheet. Then apart from this, we have studied regarding some illustrations and dividend distribution policy, which will mainly cover the legal and contractual restrictions, earnings of the company, cash of the company, financial results of the company and the what? Tax considerations. Then we have studied about persons who will be entitled to the dividend: registered shareholder, in case of death of registered shareholder, nominee, joint shareholder. Insolvency of the member and liquidation of the company, assignee or the liquidator in case of the winding up. Then is administration of the assets of the disease and administrator. Share transfer to IEPF, then IEPF is the holder. Next comes when we have said that dividend on the preference shares, preference shareholder will always get a what? Preference over the of the dividend which is declared. Then comes about your dividend in case of the beneficial owner. So payment to the dividend will be always to the member, shall not be towards the beneficial owner. Yes. Next is waiver of the amount. You cannot see, it is not an obligation, you can always waive the right. Who can waive the right? The shareholder who is entitled to receive the dividend. Declaration of the dividend, it will be declared, considered at the board meeting by way of the resolution. And always whenever you are declaring the dividend, it should be unconditional. then within 5 days from the date of declaration of the dividend, you have to amount of the dividend should be in the separate bank account. So amount if remains unpaid within 30 days shall be transferred to the unpaid dividend account. Yes. Then dividend may be paid to preference shareholders and the equity shareholder. What is the mode? Cash, check, warrant, electronical mode. Then we have studied about this. Unpaid dividend account, we have said 30 days, 7 days after expiry of 30 days is to be transferred to the unpaid dividend account. And unpaid dividend account, after that, then if dividend is unclaimed for 30 days after date of declaration, then the amount shall be transferred to unpaid dividend account. And then within 7 years, you will transfer to IEPF. Okay. This is about IEPF that we have studied. IEPF 1, there are some forms that we have studied in IEPF. For example, the forms are IPF 1 was statement of the amount credited to IEPF, IEPF 1. IPF 2, statement of information regarding the dividend on the authority website and your own website. IPF 3, intimation of specific order of court, tribunal restraining the transfer, right? Then within 30 days from the end of financial year, IPF 3. Then IPF 4 for transfer of shares to the IEPF, IEPF 4. IPF 1, any person whose shares unclaimed dividend or are claimed has been transferred to fund, he may claim his shares back in IPF 5 and IPF 7, statement of accounts credited to IEPF on account of what? Account of shares transferred to IPF within 30 days of the remittance. This is about the IPF that we have studied. And the preservation of the dividend checks, warrants and dividend registers will be for how many years? For 8 years. This is how we have studied. And then the right of the registration and transfer of shares we have studied. We have studied that there are some circumstances where the default is not there committed by the company when the dividend is not paid by the law. When a shareholder has given directions to the company for payment of the dividend, those actions cannot be complied with. There is a dispute regarding the right to receive the dividend, and dividend has been lawfully adjusted by the company against the sum due to it from the shareholder. And then fifth is, for any reason the failure to pay the dividend or post the dividend was not due to the fault of the company. These are the circumstances where you can say yes, we are not default in the payment of the dividend. Yes. Then we have studied about some of the procedure regarding declaration of the final and the interim dividend. So you can just write down this. Please write down this note in your notes. So I hope you already have written. Please come to your index, students. Before for the next lecture, we'll start with this lesson number 9. Probability is to start with this chapter. Otherwise, I'll start with part 2. We'll see to it. We'll decide and then we'll reach. Accounts and audit is simple NAFRA and then accounting standards are there. We'll just take ADT 1 and regarding the auditors it is there. Compromise arrangement. Yeah. Fine. Just come to the index, please. So mark down this important transfer, interest versus dividend, important difference, types of dividend important, declaration of dividend is important, separate bank account very important, modes of payment it is important, liability unpaid dividend account important, IEPF read with forms. Okay, then read carefully. Okay, this is how about lesson number 8. Please write down this. Write on the topics of this chapter which are important, please. And please read through the scanner. Once again, I am telling in this class also. Simultaneously, after the conclusion of this chapter, please go through the scanner, open the scanner and read what types of the questions are asked in the examinations from this chapter and try to attempt all the questions. Yes. So we have actually we have left with lesson number 9, which is NAFRA and all. This is not that much important actually. Lesson number 10, 11, okay, 12. So 11 is a dormant company. 11 we can study, we can deal with 11 chapter first. We can then start with 12th chapter then. 2 chapters we'll study and then we'll come to lesson number 9, accounts and audits, and 10, compromise and amalgamation. Yeah. Okay, so next class our target would probably be tentative target actually. We'll see, we'll discuss it internally in our institute and we'll decide what next chapter will be. So probability will I'll start with this chapter because 8 chapters are completed here. So we'll start with dormant company and then small chapters are there, but accounts and auditors is important chapter and it will take time. So probably next lecture after completing these 10th, 11th, 12th chapter, I will start with accounts and audit chapter. Okay, yeah. So thank you so much class. You can just write down this.